City of Riverbank regular council and local redevelopment authority board meetings are now in session. Today is Tuesday, November 28th, 2017. It is 6 p.m. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Roll call, please.
Council Authority Member Cal Campbell.
Here.
Council Authority Member District 4 Darlene Barber Martinez.
Here.
Council Authority Member District 2 Cindy Fossey.
Here.
Vice Mayor Chair Leanne Jones Cruz.
Here.
Mayor Chair Richard D. O'Brien.
Here. There'll be no changes to the agenda tonight. Any council or authority member or staff who has a direct conflict of interest on any scheduled agenda item to be considered is to declare their conflict at this time.
I will recuse myself from item 6.1.
Any others? Item 2, public comment. At this time, members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council LRA Board. Individual comments will be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes per person, and each person may speak once during this time. Time cannot be yielded to another person. Under state law, matters presented during the public comment period cannot be discussed or acted upon. For record purposes, state your name and city of residence. Please make your comments directly to the City Council LRA Board. Do we have any public comment?
Good evening, council members and Mayor O'Brien. My name is Vicki Holt, and I'm the library branch manager here in Riverbank. I'd like to take a moment to thank all the voters for passing Measure S to keep the funding of the 1/8 of a cent sales tax for the library. It's 89% of our library funding, and with that dedicated sales tax, we will continue to do our best to serve the community. I'd like to tell you about upcoming programs at the library. Storytime is on break for the month of December. We will start back up in January. There are 2 crafts coming up next month. December 5th, teens and tweens are invited to make yarn birds. And on December 12th, children will make yarn ornaments. We have 2 different kinds. Both crafts are at 3:30 p.m. Next year, we are planning a once-a-month art lab for kids to introduce different types of art and give children an opportunity to paint, draw, sculpt. The first one will be on January 9th. We're going to do winter bird watercolors. All programs at the library are free to the public. We have programs listed online at StanislasLibrary.org, or you can come by the library and get a calendar. It lists all the events for all the 13 different libraries. Please stop by and visit us. You're always welcome. Thank you for your time. Okay.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, we move forward to the consent calendar. Item 3A, waive readings. That's it on the consent calendar. Do we have discussion? Motion?
Make a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Push a button.
I'll second it.
We have a motion to approve and a second.
Council Authority Members Fossey.
Yes.
Barber Martinez.
Yes.
Campbell.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chair Jones Cruz.
Yes.
Mayor Chair O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 5.1, a resolution approving the general plan amendment 02-2017, redesignating 2.4 acres located at 2466 Morel Road, APN 075-030-001, to higher density residential, and introduction and first reading by title only of a proposed ordinance approving the rezoning of 2.4 acres located at 2644 Morel Road, APN 075-030-001, to multi-family residential R3 zone.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Donna Kenny, our Planning and Building Manager, will be giving the report this evening. And a PowerPoint, I think, as well.
Good evening, Council. I trust you had a good Thanksgiving. So yes, tonight you'll be looking at a general plan amendment and a rezone for 2644 Morel. This is a city-initiated general plan amendment and rezone. The reason being is the rezoning of this property is in our housing element that was adopted in 2016, and it's program 1.1C, and it's to meet the unaccommodated need from the fourth cycle. The property currently has a general plan land use designation of low-density residential and the zoning of single-family residential. The project location is light lavender there, right next to the canal. It has single-family housing to the north, the west, and the east. And to the south, there's a mobile home park. So a little background. Actually, there's a typo there. Our housing element was adopted in February of 2016, and it is the 2015-2023 housing element. The element program, as I mentioned, is 1.1C, so we are mandated by the state to meet the city's regional housing need. As we went through the housing element process, sites were selected that had a possibility of becoming multifamily in order to meet that unaccommodated need. And this was actually the only property that was selected for that category. It was identified as a prime location. So the actual language states, to meet the unaccommodated need from the fourth cycle, the city will rezone the site listed in Table 7. As I mentioned, it's the only site listed in that table, and adopt a general plan amendment. Failure to rezone the site to address this need will result in housing element noncompliance. The current general plan land use designation is low-density residential, which supports 1 to 8 units per acre. And the designation is, the general plan designation is low density, and that would go to higher density residential. I have a copy of the multifamily residential district zoning. And so for uses permitted in the R3 zone, should you rezone the property, A is single family, duplex, multiple family dwellings, apartment houses, dwelling groups, and townhouses are allowed in the R3 zoning. I guess I kind of went ahead myself. It is zoned R1, which supports 1 to 8 units per acre, and the R3 supports a density of 16 plus per acre. Now, I would like to mention that we do not have a project for this site. None has been proposed for this site. This is the city's initiated through our housing element process. And the only project that has asked about that location, a couple of years ago, Troy Ward, who did the Ward Villas, was interested in this site. And he brought forth several drawings for a mobile home park or townhouses on that site, but he never did apply and he didn't purchase the site. I did speak to the owners of the site. They bought it actually for 2 reasons. One, as an investment property, and then the other was that they were considering doing kind of a family compound at the time with their home and maybe a home for the parents and a home for the in-laws. But I just want to make sure everybody understands there is no project proposed tonight. This is simply a rezone and a GPA. So to begin this process, we send a certified letter to the property owner The property owner signs the ballot in favor of the GPA and rezone, and then it went to the Planning Commission. In response to the letter, the property owner did come in. Her name is Monet. She did come in and sign the documents. So this does not have to be analyzed per SEQA because it is not a project per SEQA. There's nothing going to be built there under this action. And we recommend that the general plan amendment and ordinance for the rezone of the 2.4 acres is approved tonight. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I do have a question. Is there enough space, or is this the appropriate time to talk about a park for that area? Or is it just for residential and there wouldn't be a park there?
Well, you mean the whole site is a park?
No, to have a park
As part of the multifamily?
is part of it, yes.
That is a possibility whenever a project is proposed and comes to the planning department. We would review it as to how a project would fit within that area. And if it seemed like perchance somebody was going to do some townhouses, which is kind of a starter home for folks, in order to build up some equity to move on, townhouses, we would consider having a park as part of the project.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Donna, can you speak to the density component? Because one of the things I've heard in talking with council about this is that the number of units that are allowed in an R3 per acre is different than what we expect actually practically could be built on that property. Can you speak to that a little?
That's correct. Starting with like R1, the low density. The low density is 0 to 8 houses per acre. But it never works out to the 8 houses per acre because we have minimum lot sizes, and we also, it's a net density, so you have to take out the streets, you take out any parking, you take out the parks. A project like River Run, which is coming to you at the next meeting, which is a subdivision, they did all they could to maximize the site, which wasn't quite square, and they only ended up with 5.6 houses per acre. So having like R3 come in and being able to say, well, there's 16 plus per acre would be allowed by the general plan, that doesn't mean that they can actually get the 16 in. It's a triangle-shaped piece. They'd have to cut off the back end probably for storm drainage. Then you'd have your streets. If it were townhouses, you could have your parking underneath the individual units, but then if you have a park, you would remove that from the acreage count as well. So you may be with 16 plus per acre there, it's a little over 2 acres. You may be able to get 16 to 20, but you'd have to really work at laying it out well on that triangle. Mm-hmm.
This is a public hearing. Open it up for public comment.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Stacy Sandoval. I live at 2637 Morrill Road. That's directly across from the property in question. We've been through this before. I believe it was like back in 2009. I'm not sure, but I think so. We have faced a lot of, I don't even know the word for it. It was rough. It was really a rough situation. And I came here tonight thinking that, oh my gosh, we're going through this again, because we were looking at apartments, low-income apartments. My husband and I purchased this home in 1995. We've raised our children there. We have, grandchildren now. It is a very busy road. We have, it is the emergency route for the city. We have a care home on that road, just at the corner of Howard and Morrill. We have Modesto City, Sylvan District, and Riverbank School District bus stops. So there are a lot of children in that area coming and going. We also have to keep in mind that there is a Crossroad Elementary right behind the canal. So it would be behind the property south of it. We have a lot of people that frequent that area with their children. We have disabled citizens that frequent the area. A lot of traffic since Crossroads has come in. No complaints about that. It's just busy. It's been a nice group of people that have come into the neighborhood, and it has made it better. We don't have a high crime rate like I had foreseen coming when I knew that all these other homes were coming in. The only thing that my husband and I are concerned with, and well, let me tell you, I was really relieved to hear the townhouses. I mean, that sounds nice, and a park, that's great. We just are opposed to an apartment complex. And I understand the city is responsible to have a certain amount of homes, provided to people. I mean, I understand that. Before I was married, I had an apartment. And why did I rent an apartment? I couldn't afford a home. So that's basically people that rent. I've been there, so I know. We bought this house with the intentions of having it to leave to our children. That's all we have to give them for their inheritance one of these days. I'm home because my health is failing, and that's just the way that it is. So I see everything that goes on. I'm not going to take a lot of your time, but I just want to make my concerns a valid point here about the traffic that's already there. Please take that into consideration. With the bus stops being on the corner, often we have traffic that is backed up from Howard past Jackson, past the canal. We have children coming and going. We do have, like was mentioned earlier, we have the mobile home park to consider. That's a lot of traffic coming in and out of there. What else? The emergency. We have the Marwick Care Home. The guests of the Marwick, they come and go at all hours, and they're on foot. They don't drive. So that's my concern with their safety as well, because a lot of them are medicated or have different difficulties of different sorts, and that creates a different issue as far as safety with the cars. So I really I'm against the apartments. I really don't want to see that. The one thing we would request too is that there has to be an environmentalist study, and I know nothing has been proposed as far as a building, or anything like that. But I want these to all be taken in consideration: the traffic study, that the emergency route. Also, at the last time that we were up against this, what we asked for when it was passed is that the 3 homes that exist, which is all, us right directly in front, our neighbors on the left, our neighbors on the right, we were to be considered in the plans, the proposals, so we'd be involved with every step of the way. We would know what's going on. It wasn't something that was going to be there and we were going to be just blindsided by everything, which that was fine too. We felt that was important. The entrances and the exits, that's a big deal to us and for everybody's safety. We request that whenever anything comes in and you see the proposal and whatnot, we just are asking that the entrance and the exits is just not directly, just one pointed at 2637 Morel. What I had asked for to be in consideration was if one of the entrance and one of the exits, either way, at the existing stop signs, one at Jackson along the canal and one at Howard at the stop sign, instead of right in the middle. We also requested that a wall be put up so that if it is an apartment complex or whatever it is, with all the traffic that will come, and it's going to be a diverse community, there's going to be a lot of different people from different areas coming in, and I'm not, I don't want to sound like I'm being harsh or mean or inconsiderate. That's not the point. I'm just thinking safety-wise, for everyone, that, especially the children that walk back and forth. Tons. Let's see. I don't really. know what else to say because I don't, the points that I made, there's nothing proposed yet. So I'll keep that until we meet again. But I just, those are my concerns. And I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. And I just want that to be considered. I know you'll probably pass it. I know that's inevitable. I knew this day would come. I dread it. It's a fight for us, to get what we need, to get what we want, because we are the existing homeowners. We were born and raised here, so we are Riverbankans, and we're proud. And I just don't want something to come in the community that's going to cause us to regret staying here, and safety measures. So that's about all I have to say for now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment? Seeing none, I close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion. First off, being in compliance with a housing element is important to us, and this will help us be in compliant. You're right, there is no proposed development, and high-end condominiums would probably be desired, and that's whatever the developer sees the need. Most developers would like to sell for a maximum profit, and it would probably behoove them to go for, and that's what we're trying to do, condominiums or townhouses that are being developed in other parts of the city. But we'll see. Again, it's up to the developer. We just want to get into the compliance part of the RENA, or the housing element compliance for RENA. Again, there's nothing proposed, and it's a long process once anything is proposed. And we'll make sure that all the residents within the area are thoroughly notified and participate. I bring it back to the council for any comments and or recommendation.
Yeah, I have some comments. This is my neighborhood, and I live about 3 blocks down on the other side of the canal. And this is primarily a single-family home neighborhood, and everything that Ms. Sandoval has stated is exactly true. That is a busy road. You just have to drive down it. One time, I go from one job to another job about 3 o'clock, and if I time it just right, I get a stop at all 3 of the bus stops with the bus and wait for all of them. So it is, I cannot imagine 36, and I know there's not really going to be 38 homes in there. There's not enough space for that many, but that's the zoning that you're putting in there. And I am 100% in agreement that that is just not the neighborhood or the place to put in an apartment. I don't think the roads themselves could handle any more traffic than is already. And I don't even live exactly on Morel. I'm on the other side of Morel, a block off of it. But I can't imagine having all that going on that road. It's a serious concern, and I have a hard time thinking that would be going on in there. So, although I do understand that we need to be in compliant with the housing element, I understand those concerns too, and I'm fully aware of that. But I have some issues with the zoning of that particular piece. So.
I'd like to make a quick comment. I had mentioned when I was discussing this with some other people about the traffic flow, and I'm concerned about that. And knowing that this isn't something that's in effect, it just meets another requirement. When we do have a development put there, we need to look at some of the things, and most of the things that were mentioned by Mrs. Sandoval, especially with the traffic. And I would even say, if it's possible, look at possibly even making a back entrance, if at all possible, to some other street. Because as Councilmember Jones Cruz said, I go down the street a lot because I don't live too far away from it, and there are times it's fairly impacted, and there are a lot of children on there. So if and when the development occurs, I think we should consider many of the things you said.
Any other comments? All right. We have two items. One, to approve the general plan amendment and introduction and first reading by title only for the proposed ordinance approving the rezoning. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the first item as stated.
I second the motion.
We have a motion to approve item 5.1 and the introduction and first reading by title only on the proposed ordinance of rezoning the 2.4 acres, and a second.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
No.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Item 6.1, consideration for a resolution to waive the facility use fees for use of the community center by the Kiwanis Club of Riverbank for a Super Bowl pancake breakfast fundraiser and appropriations of funds to the enterprise fund.
I'm going to recuse myself.
Are you a Kiwanian?
No. I'm not part of the Kiwanis Club, but I am a CEO of a nonprofit. And so it's not really a conflict, but I just don't want to have any participation in the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Sue Fitzpatrick, our Parks and Rec Director, is going to give not only a rundown of the request, but also just as an update for new council members and those that have been on the board for a while, a rehashing of our policy, just because it's been some time since we've discussed it.
Okay, Mayor, members of the council. So the Parks and Recreation Department did receive a letter from the Kiwanis Club requesting to use our building. And since it is their first fundraiser, they would like to see if we would reduce or waive the fee for the facility rental. And this is for their Super Bowl pancake breakfast fundraiser, February 3rd, 2018. The facility is available on that day. The Kiwanis Club of Riverbank is a community service organization that returns all of the proceeds that they make from their fundraisers back to the community. They distribute books to children. They sponsor the Key Club at the Riverbank High School, and they participate in community events. So the fee waiver request is the nonprofit fee for community center rental is $500, and that's a 40% off rental fee for, say, a resident would pay. Fee for the day before the event is $100 or $25 an hour, and that's if there's 2 days spent on the event or a partial day the day before. So the request for the reduced fee is up to $600, depending on if it's the full fee waiver or a reduction in the fee. In 2014, we kind of talked about this with council, and a lot of the nonprofits had been grandfathered in over the years, meaning that they had events that, like the Women's Club had done events for years, or various nonprofits. And so when we did a survey of what other cities were charging and what the going rate is for facility use, and looking at our enterprise fund, which was suffering a deficit, we realized we needed to adjust fees. So we kind of discussed that, and rather than have everyone start paying the new fee, we said let's grandfather in so many of the events and then start fresh. And that's kind of what council directed us to do back then. Also, the council, in order to fix the deficit or help the deficit in the enterprise fund, is they authorized $15,900 from the general fund to support the enterprise fund. And really, in looking and analyzing the whole community center rental, because we have so many free events, we have the food program, we have a lot of free events in there because it's the nature of the center, it's really another probably $11,000 that we're supplementing from just other events. When we have classes in there, we have a 70-30 where the instructor is paid 70% and 30% goes to the facility rental, and then is supplemented by other rentals. So the new fees were established to like I said, to avoid the deficit in the enterprise fund. And under the strategic plan that we talked about, we had talked about setting aside funds for, taking care of the facility and the maintenance of the facility that's needed. So we did start that in March of 2016, and I think we've accumulated about $12,000 in that account, which will go towards the rehabilitation of the facility as we need to do that. So fee waiver approvals, City Council directed that we come to the City Council and ask for a fee waiver if there is a request, and then at that time, fees are transferred from the general fund to the enterprise fund to cover the cost of city services. So again, the request for a reduced or fee waiver is up to $600. And I know that the Kiwanis president is here if you have any questions or if they'd like to say anything. So, and I haven't really met the new president, but I know Larry's here. But
Before I open it up, I'd like to ask you a couple questions.
okay.
Okay, when we're doing an operation at the community center, what are the actual costs per hour?
Well, we've kind of figured out the cost of all the utilities and lights and everything, and we've established that it's about $25 an hour.
Okay, and do you have to have a staff member on site?
For nonprofits, we don't usually do that. We just give them the key, and they set up and take down. So the $500 fee is the new fee that is kind of what we've come up with is the going rate.
Thank you.
Yeah. 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 I just know that we agonized over this when we did this. And we spent a lot of time and energy on this particular, I was brand new on the council. And it's always really hard because it's a community center. We want the community to use it. But we also can't run the budget at a structural deficit. And we have to be able to pay for those fees. Now, so it's kind of an interesting dilemma. I totally understand and get that nonprofits do fabulous things in our community, and we couldn't do a lot of stuff without it. But we also have to maintain our buildings and facilities in order to have them to hold events in. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma.
When your actual costs are X and you're collecting X plus Y, it may be that the Y is not needed for certain events. Certain nonprofits benefit the community directly above and beyond what we as a city council can do. So that's why I believe, this is just coming to head, but I'd like us to consider taking a look at actual cost and applying that towards nonprofits depending on what they're using that for. And I believe that the community center is for the community, and what better efforts is there than a nonprofit giving directly back to the community, raising funds in our community center?
Well, our nonprofits do. I'm thinking of one that's going to be going on next weekend, and they're having to pay to use the facility. And that money that they generate from that, which is quite a bit, goes directly back into the community. So I'm the one that
I'm looking at all nonprofits, not just one.
Huh?
I'd like to have the general discussion in the future for all nonprofits, paying just the expenses that are occurring at the time of use. And if it's,
I'm with you. I think we're saying the same thing, but if you, I think we went through and hashed this when we set up those fees in the beginning. I remember agonizing over this and discussing that the nonprofits, it's like, yeah, you've grandfathered some in, but what about other ones that are going to come along? A $500 fee is a lot, especially when you're collecting fees and you got to pay $500, but you're probably only going to make $500. So it's kind of a wash. It defeats the purpose of having a nonprofit. I get it. So we either have to not have fees for all of them, or
That's what I'm saying.
so.
Turn on the mic. If I may comment, when we originally set this up, we only grandfathered in nonprofits that had been doing some particular community events for several years. Any new event by that nonprofit still had to be paid at the market value right now of $500. Only existing things like the omelet breakfast for the Historical Society, the women's clubs,
But they
Christmas
pay.
plate dinner, those were not grandfathered in. But at the same time, I agree with the mayor that we maybe ought to look at this again, but we've got to be careful right now until we do look at it. And I would recommend maybe we even look at it at our next meeting if possible, because if and when we're following our procedures and we okay this one tonight without and make our change later, that would be good. But at the same time, I realize that there's a risk with this nonprofit because they've never done this before. But I'm in several nonprofits and we took risks doing the same thing. Sometimes it didn't work out as good. So I'm not against it, but we've got to balance it so that it's fair to everyone down the road, because that wouldn't be fair if we didn't. So I agree that we need to look it over again.
Sue, I have a question. What do they pay if they use other facilities besides our center? Would they have to pay somewhere else? Are we being competitive for our nonprofits?
Yeah, we are way under the regional figures,
Okay.
but, and the school district is much higher as well. One thing to remember though, the ones that were grandfathered in are either paying nothing or only custodial. And that's, the problem is when we have too many of these, and I know it's a difficult thing and I'm feeling the same way everyone else is, but if we book the facility solid with nonprofits paying nothing, there will be more coming from the general fund. And at the end of the day, we will asking for another $20,000 to be transferred in, because it adds up very, very quickly. The utility bills alone are $30,000 a year in the community center. So the bills are real. The custodial supplies are real, all of those things, but we just have to be careful that we don't book it solid with the ability not to offset our other costs, or it'll come back and hit us hard. So one suggestion, if it would help at all, I'm wondering if maybe, since the Kiwanis are, we don't do anything for the Kiwanis as far as our facilities, and maybe an idea is when a nonprofit is going to try something new, a fundraiser, maybe give them a reduced rate to start with that first year and see how they do, and then go back up and they can kind of gauge how they're going to do that way. You know, I'm not real sure if that's feasible, but that would be a suggestion I would have, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting probably compromise, because what you probably don't want, the whole point of a grandfathered class of nonprofits is that those nonprofits have existed for a long time and have these legacy type events that the community wants to continue, you know, for the future. And you know, as council knows, our general fund is not in a position to continue to take on additional burden in any way. So perhaps that is an idea that to help get some of these events off the ground, you could create some minor subsidy to do that and then see how it goes. But like the vice mayor has mentioned, there's not an easy answer here. It's complicated and difficult.
And even those stuff, I just want to make sure it's perfectly clear that even the ones that are grandfathered in, they're still paying fees, because I know I write the checks and look at the financial reports of the club that I belong to. We still pay for the custodial fees. We still pay for the setup fees. And so it's not completely free. And what I got out of here is they want a fee waiver for all of it. So, although, and I'm not trying to be difficult here, I am all for fundraisers. Please hear me out. I am all for using our community center and having fundraisers. But you're also opening a box for the all the other groups that use that. Okay, well, they got a fee waiver. We're going to write a letter and come in here and get our, I mean, where at one point in time do you pay to use the facilities is all that I want to say out there. I'm not trying to be hard-nosed about this or anything like that, but it's a tough situation.
I agree. In this instance, if you're having a breakfast, you're going to be using, I'm assuming, the kitchen. You're going to be using water, the electricity, the furniture, the table and chairs. So
Can I speak to this, and then I can tell you exactly what we're doing?
I think that we need to make sure that we're recovering at least those costs. So some type of fee, whether it's half of this, like your suggestion is, we waive half of that fee and see how they do, indicating that we may charge the full fee next time. But we have to have something. We can't keep subsidizing this facility.
Thank you. Okay, I open it up for public comment.
My name's Al Smith, and I'm a charter member of the club. I don't know exactly about this grandfathering. I think it said 2014 or something, your grandfather thing. Well, this club was chartered in 2012. And granted, this particular club in Riverbank didn't have a history behind it, but Kiwanis, period, the organization that this club belongs to worldwide, has a history of it. And in this short period of time, we have provided shoes and clothing and coats. We've opened we've sponsored a Key Club, which is a sponsored youth organization, and student-led at the high school, about 3 years now. And that's just a matter of the three, and I can speak to about 10 or 12 different projects that we do annually. Those fees any fees that we make from fundraising, and I'm sure some of you are in, like you said, nonprofits, and you know yourself, fundraising is the only way that we can exist as far as serving the community. Now, we weren't asking for, well, we were asked for a waiver. The reason that we did that is because some other communities do waive fees and to nonprofits, because we have and I'm not sure what organizations you belong to, but within our organization or our club, we have separate bank accounts. We have an administrative account and we have a service account. In no way do our funds that we raise through fundraising provide any kind of administrative fee or any kind of anything to do other than total 100% community service. So it goes in that fund. So everything that and sometimes it's not very much. Sometimes, we take a big risk, and we might, if you wanted to break it out to an hour or something like that, you might be making $2 an hour or something like that. I mean, I've been at some of these fundraisers where I just donated $100 rather than show up because, we'd be farther ahead. But we're not asking anybody to subsidize or to hurt the community, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to serve the community, and we're community. We're citizens, taxpayers, same as everybody else. And the only difference between us and some of the other people in the community is that we volunteer. None of us are reimbursed. We volunteer. In fact, we pay to volunteer because we pay club dues, which is required for different things that we have available to us, like we have insurance available to us through our club dues and things like that. So we pay to volunteer, and all the net proceeds from these fundraising efforts go back to providing service to the community in different ways. Now, we provide books. We have to somehow get those books. We provide books. We provide, like I mentioned earlier, we provide jackets and coats and shoes and whatever the needs are for particular things. Christmas baskets, food baskets, whatever the need is. Now, we're not a large club, as you probably know, but we do hope to grow, but we're not going to let that slow us down with our community service. But we do need the fundraisers. And some of the fundraisers, I mean, we may not make $600. We don't know. But we're not asking for a free ride. Would be nice because, like I just mentioned earlier, some communities do allow you to use different facilities, and so you use a little bit of gas or whatever it is you use to cook with, and lights and whatever it is, some of the overhead. So some of that stuff's going to be running anyway. You know, refrigerators, whatever. Some of that stuff's running anyway. So what we're asking you today is, yes, we would like a waiver, 100% waiver. If that's not possible, then what can we have? What can we get? If we could just pay the expenses, that would help. We may not make any profit at all from this. And if we do, and it's been the history of a lot of fundraisers that you don't make a lot. Sometimes if you can get ahead of what your expenses are, then you're pretty happy about that. But that was some other things. You just need to do more fundraisers. Now, we're not asking to use this facility for all of our fundraisers because we do a lot of other things too. So basically what I'm saying, what I'm hearing here is that we're not asking for something really special, or I didn't think it was special, that's out of the ordinary. And we have, like I said, granted, we weren't here back in 1995 or something like that. We chartered, there was a need here, and we chartered a club here in 2012, before this grandfather thing goes on. And we've accomplished quite a bit in the past few years, 5 years, and we hope to accomplish more. But we have to have community service in order to accomplish those things. And I have some trifolds and so forth if anybody would like to have something that kind of gives you an overview of what we do. Well, I say we, what the Kiwanis Club does. And again, just remember, we're just citizens like everybody else. One thing is we volunteer. And pretty much that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
I had a comment.
Sure.
I'm
open-
Nancy,
Oh,
I'm
after
sorry.
her.
I'm Nancy Tuga. I'm one of the members of the Kiwanis Club. I'm also happen to be the Kiwanis advisor to the Key Club, so I have some experience with it. We've been going, this is our 4th year now. And I'm here just actually to speak directly to other areas. I know that the Kiwanis Club in Oakdale pays $20 an hour to rent the center there. So, and I see, if it's $25 is to turn on the lights and run the heat and everything, I think that's only fair to pay personally. I think that would be something we could easily do or should do. Because as you say, now of course, some of that electricity will be used all the time anyway. And if no one else is renting the place, then it's simply sitting there. And no one else has asked for it so far that day. So we'd at least be using it. Thank you.
Further public comment? Can I bring it back to the council?
Okay, just a couple of points of clarification. It isn't how old you are as an organization where you got the waiver that was grandfathered in. What it was were special events only for those organizations. If those organizations do a new event, and I happen to be a member of one of those organizations that this summer tried a new event, and it didn't work out as well as they thought it would, but they were required to pay the full fees. My dilemma is we either need to change this to make it fair for everyone, or we either need to keep it the way it is and enforce it, but to take care of the cost and the other things that are there. I'm not against changing it, but we would have to do that at another meeting. But I do want to see the fairness go all the way down. And as I said, even the organizations that have been here a while, and they're all volunteer. They all give back to the community in some way, and they're not paid. So we understand that. But at the same time, some of these organizations, at this time, if they try a new event that wasn't grandfathered in, they're under the same situation that you're under. We've got to remedy it if we decide to do that tonight to make it fair all the way.
All right. I'd like to have a recommendation.
I would recommend that we don't approve it unless we can modify this in a future council meeting, because I am concerned about the fairness all the way around, as I stated.
Do I have a second for not recommending approval of item 6.1?
I second.
We have a motion to not approve item 6.1 in a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mayor, before you move forward, just so I know that your motion was very clear. Did Councilmember Campbell, did you want this to be returning at a future to talk about it globally?
Yes,
Okay.
I would like to see it brought as quickly back as possible. So if I do want to do this, we make it correct with what we have now.
Okay.
So, do we have to vote on it, or can we ask to bring it
You want to continue it?
back? Because
That would be good.
can we, at this
You
point
could
in time, we've
continue
made a
the item
motion, but-
with no decision at this time and just direct us to come back with this item paired with the total policy consideration for everyone as well. So what we would do is agendize first the policy so that we could talk about the policy and what we want to do for new clubs, and then based on that decision, you can make a decision on Kiwanis after, if that works.
I think that would be good, and if we're going to revise it, come up with some revision. I know the mayor was commenting about that. I think we need to tweak this particular part of our legislation.
We'll try to come up with some different options that council can kind of kick around a little bit.
I like the idea that Sue suggested of giving them a discount and helping them out with their event. I want to make sure it's perfectly clear. I'm not saying I don't want to do this. I'm just, we need to cover costs.
And our costs are $25 an hour, is what was stated. That's your cost.
Then
Now,
make a motion
now what
to
you do,
something else.
what we do is we spread load it completely across the board for our facilities completed. But if we take a look at our utilities, I would say it's much more than $25 an hour, especially if they're using the water, the kitchen. Plus, you also have to take in all the disposables, such as from the toilets or paper towels, etc. So you have to take all of those costs into effect, and then you can come up with a fair, what is the cost per hour, and what should be charged.
And that's what we've done. That's what we presented. We can do it again, and we'll get a brand new survey to show that we're way, way under.
I'm not looking at a survey. A survey tells you what you're charging around. You know, you have to do a cost analysis. Expense.
Sorry.
It's
Water,
hard to.
electricity.
Okay, we came up with $25 an hour, but there's a lot of indirect costs we don't consider. That's what we need to decide, is what are we looking at for cost recovery? Are we looking for Juanita's time? Are we looking for
Yes.
everything? If we're looking for everything, it's gonna be way more than $25 an hour.
I
So-
understand that, and that's why we need to know what our true costs are.
Okay.
So when we do a waiver, I know that we have reduced costs because you're a resident versus a non-resident. You're giving us a break. You're also doing another additional reduced cost for nonprofits. But what are your true costs? And then we can scale it to what we believe the situation deems.
Okay. And then we have to remember we established a set aside, And that's for the community center improvements. And at this point, our facility is in disrepair. And we have to figure in that set aside as well as far as the true cost. Otherwise, we won't have money to
That can be presented, and then as we do it scalable, we could say what is accepted and what's not.
Okay.
Please don't lump everything together.
Yeah, so to give that's a real analysis that's going to take some time for us to do it accurately. And so I'm hesitant to commit to 2 weeks from now if you really want a full picture of it. I want to make sure that if that's what council wants, you really want that per hour amount drilled down. We're going to include liability. We're going to include all of the other little additives that come into it. I'd like some time to be able to really do a good job on that versus rush, unless council says we really want it back in 2 weeks, in which case we'll do it. But
When it was being discussed, I looked at January 9th.
I think we can put that together.
Their event is February 3rd, so without an answer, I don't know, for the advertising.
I mean, the event right now will be charged, what, $600?
Okay.
If they proceed and they want to go without waiting for it, fine. But if not, if they want to wait, we'll come back with an analysis. And how long is your event going to last? I understand that. Hours-wise? Okay.
And the night before, the evening before as well?
You have to come on up front if you're going to speak again.
It's a board decision, actually, at the club board decision, but I'm going to say this, and I'm going to present it to the board, that we go ahead and don't do this until we find out, until we get this worked out. So we'll cancel that. But I can't say that, but I'm going to take it to the board, and I'm pretty sure they'll agree with me. I think that's probably the way to handle it. That should take care of it. But to answer your question, Mayor, it's about 4 hours, I think, is what we use.
Okay, so let's clean up the motions for the record. So is there consensus that we rescind the motion that was made by Councilmember Campbell and Fossey?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Agreed.
So now what we will do is table this item until further study and investigation till January. So I need a vote to table the item
To continue it.
Yeah, to consider later.
Right, to continue. I move that we continue this until January 9th.
I second it.
Councilmembers Fossey,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Item 6.2, a resolution approving a memorandum of understanding with the Riverbank Miscellaneous Employees Bargaining Unit for a term of July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2018, regarding the salaries, benefits, hours, and other terms of condition of employment.
Thank
Let's
you.
wait until Barbara Martinez returns to the dais.
Thank you, Mayor. Our Assistant City Manager, Marcela Garcia, who was involved in the bargaining pretty much from the beginning, will be giving the report this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. After many months of negotiations with the Riverbank Miscellaneous Bargaining Unit, we are pleased to present to you the Memorandum of Understanding that has been agreed upon between that bargaining unit and the City of Riverbank. Some of the key terms of the agreement is only a one-year agreement, which started as of July 1st, 2017, and will end on June 30th, 2018. That means we will commence negotiations for this contract that will expire on June 30th, sometime in February or March. In terms of our medical benefits, this is one of the items that we negotiated for the calendar year 2018 only. The city is going to offer a Kaiser and a Sutter Health Plus Platinum plan. We currently offer a Bronze plan, which has a low premium but a significantly high deductible and out-of-pocket costs. Moving to the Platinum plan does increase our premium costs, but it significantly decreases the out-of-pocket cost. The city will pay 100% of the premium for the employee and their dependents, and the employees will be responsible for 100% of that out-of-pocket cost. Currently, the city covers 85% of the out-of-pocket costs. What that means is for a family, we cover $11,100 a year in out-of-pocket cost. And for a single person, we cover $5,550. So the city will no longer be covering those out-of-pocket costs for the employees. Compensation-wise, we are looking at a one-time bonus for each employee of $1,000. This can be taken in the form of a direct payment through our payroll process, or they have the option of having the city set that aside for them and us reimbursing some of their medical out-of-pocket expenses for them. All of it is eligible for taxes, etc., so they would have to report that on their W-2s as income. All other benefits will remain the same, and all of the other terms within the Memorandum of Understanding will remain the same, with the exception of 2 updates that the city wanted to make sure we included in that MOU. We did clarify some language for a $250 stipend that employees who were hired prior to July 1st of 2005 received the stipend, and this stipend can only be used towards deferred compensation or if they have a gym membership, etc., and only if they had single coverage at that time and they remain under single coverage during the term of this agreement are they eligible for that. The second update is that we, as a city, do contribute to the LIUNA pension fund on the employee's behalf. Annually, the pension fund changes those rates, similar to what CalPERS does, and so we wanted to make sure that the MOU reflected the current year rate. The financial impact for this contract is we will have net insurance savings for the current fiscal year of $24,200. The one-time bonus cost to the city will be $26,000. So there's only a slight additional cost of $1,800. Only a third of that is borne by the general fund. For the future, there are funds that will become available to the city to reappropriate to different projects because they will not be allocated towards health insurance. And these are the direct costs of the out-of-pocket costs that were being covered by the city for the employees and their dependents. And with that, we are recommending approval of the Memorandum of Understanding tonight with the Riverbank Miscellaneous Bargaining Unit, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
On the $1,000, if they decide to have it put in reserve for medical, is that still taxable?
It is still taxable. At the end of the year, they'll receive a 1099, so that they would still have to report that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Any questions, comments from the public? Seeing none, I bring it back to the council for recommendation.
I make a motion that we accept this agenda item as stated.
I second.
We have a motion to approve item 6.2 and a second.
Council members Fosse,
Yes.
Barbara Martinez,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Item 7.1, staff comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 quick items tonight. Wanted to thank Sue and her staff for how hard they worked on the downtown Christmas parade. It went really well, and it was a lot of fun. I got to just enjoy it as a citizen and not an employee, and so appreciate that. And also appreciate Councilmember Campbell and Barbara Martinez for attending the Boats and Waterways Commission meeting at Jacob Meyer Park today, and they'll probably have more to say about that when it gets down to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Council remarks. Councilmember Fosse.
I don't have any comments at this time.
Councilmember Campbell.
Well, as Sean said, Councilmember Martinez and I went and attended a Boats and Waterways Committee meeting at Jacob Myers Park. They came from the state. It's a state committee. And they were very impressed with the park. And we think that we got their attention to hopefully get a little bit more weight their way when we do apply for grants through the state to that particular organization to help improve the park even more. And the other thing I'd like to say is, you heard some comments about volunteering, excuse me, for nonprofit groups, and we have a lot of those in our community. And we really, not just the ones that I belong to, but the ones I don't belong to, it seems to be a real problem because we have a lot of the groups in our community that have an older people, but they're not getting new people coming in. So if you know some younger people that want to serve or help out, send them towards some of the nonprofits in the community. They could surely use your help.
Barbara Martinez.
As Councilmember Campbell stated, there are a lot of volunteer opportunities, and I'd just like to share with the public a couple of the activities that will be going on. Toys for Tots with the Marines will be, the toy giveaway will be on Saturday, December 16th from 1 to 4. It'll be at Cardosa Middle School, and you'd have to call Casa del Rio to sign up by December the 5th. Also, the Riverbank Cares food distribution will be on December 22nd from 10 to 12, and that will be at the community center. And I think that might be all that I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to thank the city staff for a fabulous Christmas parade and bazaar. It was just awesome to see the community come out for that. I think it's one of my favorite things that that goes on in the year. It's just a neat community. I just love seeing all the folks down here and drinking hot chocolate and eating tacos and watching the parade. It's just awesome. And I'd like to continue that tradition and go forward with it. Just thank everyone for a fabulous evening.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank the staff and especially finding Santa after he got lost.
Santa.
I had the honor to interview 10 individuals for the Planning Commission. Of those 10 individuals, 80% had a master's degree or higher. We had one that had at least a BA and a 10th member. Those are exciting to have those individuals. And then we'll be seeing them, I believe, next month for recommendations. The reason why I brought that out, those that did not get selected, since there was only 2 slots available, those that did not get selected wanted to volunteer for the BAC. And so we now have a full complement at both the PC and the BAC. So that is in itself exciting. We have individuals who are very proud of the city and are coming forward, as we saw today, even though we may have disappointed Ms. Sandoval, we are open for discussion and allowing them to discuss with us. So with that, I conclude and we go into closed session consisting of item 8.1, conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code 54957.6, agency representative, city manager Sean Scully. Employee organization, Riverbank Miscellaneous Employees, Riverbank Mid-Management Bargaining Unit, unrepresented executive management. Item 8.2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to subdivision Bravo of Government Code 54956.9, 3 potential cases. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on any of the closed session items? Seeing none, I adjourn to closed session. We are back from closed session. Number 9, report from closed session, item 9.1. Report from closed session, item 8.1, conference with labor negotiators. Direction has been provided to staff. Item 9.2, report from closed session, item 8.2, anticipated litigations, 3 potential cases. Direction has been provided to staff. The city council meeting is now adjourned.